So today I'm supposed to talk about my communication style. It's interesting. I've never really thought too much in depth about it. On the Pathways website, there's a survey you're supposed to take before giving this speech. Yeah, I didn't take it. I ran into a lot of friction on the website. Again, was defeated. So nonetheless, this speech today is completely self-generated. And I'm starting with a blank slate to talk about what I think are my strengths, weaknesses, and what I can improve about my communication style. First, I'll say that I believe that communication style and communications aptitude is not just a function of public speaking style and aptitude. Your communication style is part of all of your daily interactions, whether it's just talking to people you know, talking to people you don't know, your correspondence, your email, your phone usage, your body language, like today's theme, your demeanor, all these things play into your communication style. But I'm going to focus mostly on the verbal, because I believe that's the intent of this speech. I'm going to break it into 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about some of my personality traits that I think are relevant to my communication style. I'm going to talk about what I believe are my strengths, what I believe are my weaknesses, and a few things I think I can do to improve my style. So first, personality traits. Most significantly, I am a textbook introvert. And by that, I don't mean to intimate that I don't talk or don't like to talk. What that means is that being in social situations and being engaged with others costs me energy. It tires me out to be engaged with other people, especially in social situations, as opposed to an extrovert who gains energy from being around other people. So as an introvert, left to my own devices, I will tend to go off to be by myself, which is relevant here because as I'm talking later about what I need to improve, I need to break out of that. I need to make myself uncomfortable and put myself in engaging situations. Also, I tend to be a bit of a closed book. I like to keep others, at least initially, at an arm's distance. I'm not one of those people that can sit down across the table from a stranger, a new acquaintance, and within the first minute or two, break down those emotional barriers and really feel connected to them. It takes me a while to get to that point. And that's not intentional. I think that's just natural for me. And if the other person across the table is an introvert as well, that could be a long time. We're talking years before we really connect. And my last personality trait, I think this is common for everyone, but especially with me, is that I have a short attention span. We're talking 20 to 30 minutes that I can focus on something, especially if it's something I'm not particularly interested in. At 20 to 30 minutes, and now I'm pretty much, my mind's starting to wander. I'm pretty good at losing interest, even in very interesting things. And I mean, I think that's evident. I haven't seen a full-length movie in probably 5 or 6 years. I usually get about half an hour in, then change channel or walk away. So those are some of my personality traits. A couple of my strengths as regards to communication. One, I can be articulate. I'm not saying I am articulate, but if I'm communicating and talking to someone about something I am comfortable with, familiar with, and interested in, I have the ability to be articulate. So that in certain situations I can be articulate, but I'm not necessarily always that. Also, as a function of being an introvert, I naturally am a good listener. I like to listen more than I like to talk. So I more often than not find myself in the listening role, which I think is an important thing to do when you're communicating with people. And thirdly, I tend to think I am rather agreeable to be around. And by that, I don't mean to be tooting my own horn, but what I mean by that, what I'm intimating here is that generally people think I'm not unenjoyable to be around. So in other words, people tend to not immediately dislike me, which, hey, I'll take it. That's small victories here. So those are my 3 of my strengths that I identified when I was thinking about this. Moving on to my weaknesses. Now I really had to whittle this list down because it was pretty long, but for the sake of time, I brought it down to 3. First, related to being agreeable, sometimes I can take that a little bit too far to the point of where I'm non-confrontational. I think there's a spectrum where on one end is agreeableness and at the extreme end, non-confrontationalism. At the other end is brutal honesty, directness, and to the point of being abrasive. I tend towards the more agreeable side of the spectrum, and I think I could work myself a little bit more towards the direct side of the spectrum. I've been told many times that I am sometimes dry and monotone, and that gives off the perception that I am emotionally maybe stale. So I need to be a little bit more animated sometimes. I'm working on that here today. And then lastly, my self-confidence. Like I already said that, hey, when I'm talking about something that I'm comfortable with and familiar with, I'm articulate, I'm also confident. But in life, we're not always confident, or I'm sorry, we're not always comfortable and familiar with the things we're talking about. In fact, most of the time we are not. And to me, that eats at my confidence, and I think that shines through sometimes. So I need to work at being more confident when I'm talking about things that I'm not completely comfortable with. So my get well plan, first, self-awareness. And I think this speech and this exercise is a good step in that direction. Also, the feedback I get from all of you from my speeches is very good for making me more self-aware, and I really appreciate that. Also, repetition. I need to engage with people more often and not fight off my natural tendency to step outside of the back porch at a party and just stare off into the woods. I need to basically get out of my comfort zone and interact more with people to develop that skill. And then lastly, I need to be more direct. So like I said, I'm very agreeable. I tend to sometimes, I catch myself saying what I think other people want to hear. I think we're all guilty of that to some extent. But there is definitely a time and a place to be direct and honest. And that's something I'd like to foster more of in myself. So in closing, I thought this speech and preparing for it specifically was a very valuable exercise for me. It made me really think about how I communicate with others, my family, my friends, fellow Toastmasters, and made me aware of some things I need to work on. I'm absolutely interested in all of your feedback, not just my evaluator today, Tatiana, but all of you. Feel free to pull me aside after a meeting and tell me, hey, Brad, you need to work on this a little bit, or whatever it might be. I'm absolutely interested in that, and I value it, because all that feedback will help me grow as a communicator. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Fellow Toastmasters, Brad was giving speech number 1 from the second level of pathways. And his goal was to understand his own communication style. This is a very difficult project. I just did it in a different club. And I'm telling you, it's as complicated and as challenging as an icebreaker, because you're sort of digging into yourself. And I think that Brad has done a wonderful job. And it showed in his speech by preparing and working on his speech. It showed up in the content and the way the content was organized. And I didn't notice it until I was reading the evaluation form that it was one of the criteria of the successful project. Not only talk about your communication style, but do it in a very well organized way. And I think that Brad has done a wonderful job. And I'll tell you why. We all struggle sometimes choosing what exactly our message is and how to support this message with just 3 points. Brad did something I haven't done for a couple years in Toastmaster. He didn't choose 3 points. He told us so much, right? He told us how he understands the communication style overall to be part of the personal relationship, not only public speaking. He told us about his strength, about his weakness, about who he is, what he wants to do, and he asked us for help at the end. But it was all interweaved in such a masterful way that I can tell right now who Brad is as a communicator, personal communicator or public speaker, and what I can do to help him to do better if he wants. One thing about the organization, one suggestion I have, you have a great introduction for Toastmasters, but you could have added more. You started by explaining that you were unable to open computer. We didn't need to know that. Very effective gestures and eye contact. You do tend to clasp your hands sometimes, and sometimes do like this, something like this. Just watch yourself. It's a bit distracting. You did maintain the eye contact throughout your speech, except in the beginning when you did look into your nose. But sometimes your eyes are locked in the center of the table. So you do look into the audience, but you do not look into our eyes. And I understand I tend to do it as well, it's safer. But I promise, if you look into our eyes, you will get our energy from us. We will give it to you, so do it, please. You have a great sense of humor. And this is a huge part of who you are as a communicator. I really like the way you said, that's why I brought it here, because I have things written down, not unenjoyable. That's how I know now you're not unenjoyable, highly enjoyable speaker. And I look forward to you improving, but please remain yourself.
Thank you.